If you're here after seeing Eddie Kingston for the first time on Dynamite against Cody, welcome. I'm glad you have seen the light and seek further to understand one of the all-time greats. Eddie Kingston rules. He is one of the absolute best pro wrestlers in the world today, from his ring work to his transcendent promos, and has been working at that level for the past 2 decades now. He is a fixture of the independent scene that has seen trends, contemporaries, and even promotions rise and fall. And through it all, the Mad King remains standing. So looking over that 20-year career to select 5 matches for people who aren't too familiar with Eddie Kingston was a real challenge. The guy's just done so much good work, and it's a little difficult to know what might appeal to someone who's never seen him before. But I did my best to curate matches that were both indicative of Eddie Kingston's best assets as a performer, as well as being easily accessible for most fans. In fact, every match that I'm talking about today is readily available for free, legally, on YouTube, so you guys have no excuse. So, here are 5 Eddie Kingston matches to watch if you're new to him. I've sequenced them in the order I recommend seeing them in. Let's go!
You know what my war is? Every morning I wake up and I fight with the devil. Every morning I wake up and I'm either gonna go do good or do bad.
Starting things off, I think Eddie Kingston vs. Chris Hero from AIW is the perfect introduction to Eddie Kingston. There's a few good reasons for that. First off is that this is an introduction to Eddie Kingston lore. Through his career, it's commonly been accepted that Chris Hero has been Kingston's arch-nemesis both in and out of the ring. Their wars in the 2000s are held up as some of the best of that era. But here in 2014, coming off the heels of Hero's first run in NXT, we are unburdened with the need for context. All we need to know is that these two men do not like each other, and they will display that to us with violence. The first 5 minutes of the match highlight exactly what makes Kingston so singular as a performer. It's the kind of strike exchange that we've come to expect from matches these days, but Kingston infuses it with so much more personality and selling than you would get from most wrestlers. This isn't just a spot to do for Eddie Kingston. It's a manifestation of a struggle for pride, a mark of his hatred and disdain for a foe he'd thought long out of his purview. The match plays out as a war of attrition as they eschew traditional match structure for something a little more raw and visceral. Momentum ebbs and flows between them as much of this is built purely around stiff strikes and great selling. It's much more nuanced and dynamic than similar slugfests you might have seen before. It's not the flashy explosion one might be expecting, but rather a real drag-out brawl between 2 veterans. 4.25 stars for this one. Brief warning for anyone wanting to watch this match: while the in-ring content is excellent, the audio production on this footage is less than ideal. The ring isn't mic'd properly and neither is the crowd, so all the action sounds distant and muffled. I think the action holds up against these production issues, but it's something to keep in mind regardless. This is the ideal match to watch to get a vibe of what Eddie Kingston currently brings to the independent scene. From last year at Heavy Metal Wrestling, Kingston gets put in the ring against Thomas Shire. Both Kingston and Shire have a shared list of influences, as Kingston has made no secret of his love for All Japan King's Road, whereas Shire was trained by none other than All Japan legend Dory Funk Jr. To that end, Shire and Kingston work an extremely fundamentally sound match that steadily escalates its way to its finish. This might be one of Kingston's most versatile performances, especially on this list of 5. He's able to have a rough and grimy exchange on the mat, there's his signature stiff strikes, and even some top rope work. It's also a great show of how well Kingston balances his character's threat level. For much of the early match, Kingston dominates the proceedings against the much less experienced Shire. Despite Shire being the bigger man, Kingston's roughness and veteran wiles makes him the bigger threat in the match. He makes for a perfect obstacle to test Shire, and seeing Shire work to overcome Kingston is the core of the emotional drama in this match. This is a varied, clever performance from a veteran who's been plying his trade for decades and using that experience to give some shine to someone in the next generation. 4 stars for me. Most fans of Eddie Kingston from the 2000s and 2010s will most closely associate him with CHIKARA, so it's essential to take a look at some of his matches from there. Perhaps one of the best matches to see from Kingston's run in the 2000s is this match from 2008 against Shane Storm. As you can see from the go on the footage, Shane Storm is aesthetically the exact opposite of Eddie Kingston. Where Kingston embodies the hard and rough side of professional wrestling, Shane Storm has a goofy cartoon expression on his mask, a shock of neon green hair, a t-shirt, and denim shorts. This match excels primarily for being a key example of one of the best genres of pro wrestling. Eddie Kingston bullies and batters an underdog. Unlike every other match on this list, Kingston is firmly in control through this entire affair, and he remains so in an incredibly brutal way. Early in the match, Kingston busts open Storm's face and the blood drips out of his cartoonish mask. It's a stark piece of violence that really stands out against the typically family-friendly landscape of CHIKARA. As with the Shire match, the appeal of the third act is seeing the babyface Storm try to rise to Kingston's level. What separates this from the Shire match, however, is the malice with which Kingston attacks. The violence is far more visceral, and the addition of blood makes the sense of struggle far more tactile. Also, the production really allows for the offense here to shine, and it's not just Kingston throwing hands either. Storm gets some really great shots in, but his issue isn't even winning this match. It's merely about surviving. This is Kingston at the peak of his powers as a brutal heel, and a definite must-see. 4.5 stars for me. From the peak of his bullying abilities to a grand display of Kingston's selling and vulnerability. This match is a fantastic clash of styles as the rough and tumble brawler in Eddie Kingston now has to take on Timothy Thatcher. Not only is Kingston older and more worn down physically than his opponent, but Thatcher might be the ultimate specimen. He's a hard man who works a precise and clinical style that promises to pick apart any person he stands against. Seeing the two men in the ring, it is clear that Kingston is the underdog here. He can tie it up with the best of them, but Timothy Thatcher is someone on an entirely different level. Still, even in the face of overwhelming odds, Kingston has the fire and determination of 10 men, and he's not afraid to provoke the man in his way. Although it doesn't look it at first glance, this is a really great character matchup. Thatcher is the grappler in his prime, and Kingston, the aging gunslinger still swinging and going forward in a fight that it looks like he just won't win. This is the kind of nuanced performing that has kept Kingston relevant and compelling so deep into his career. 4 stars for me. Disclaimer: the following matchup features a performer that has been accused of fostering and participating in a culture of abuse from his position of power as a pro wrestling trainer. Should this make you uncomfortable and you wish to skip my discussion of this match's formal and critical qualities, please feel free to skip to this timestamp in the video. Now is probably a good time to discuss Eddie Kingston's promos. Kingston is one of the best mic workers in the history of indie wrestling. Every single promo is filled with passion, emotion, and intensity, but few stand out quite as well as his promo leading into CHIKARA High Noon. This is something that you need to see before you get into the pay-per-view and the match ahead. It enriches the viewing experience, and it's worth to see on its own.
When I have that title in my hands, I have my redemption. I have my penance.
This match comes in the main event of CHIKARA's first ever iPay-per-view event. It is the finals of a year-long round-robin tournament, the 12 Large Summit, named for the recently deceased Larry Sweeney. The winner becomes the first ever CHIKARA Grand Champion. It would be the pinnacle of Eddie Kingston's career, a validation of the years of hard work that he's put in for the business and for CHIKARA. Standing in his way, the man who trained him. The man who trained every person that's been through the CHIKARA Wrestle Factory, Mike Quackenbush. This is the first and only time these two ever faced off in singles action. That in itself makes it worth watching. So often in wrestling, good things get run into the ground until they cease having meaning. Having something just happen once and for it to go so well is something unique and special. The match might be Eddie Kingston's best babyface performance. He calls on the influence of one of his heroes, Toshiaki Kawada, and puts on a knee-selling clinic that many have imitated but never truly duplicated. Despite being the larger man, the student-teacher dynamic makes Kingston the underdog in this situation, and his historically bad leg makes it even worse for him. The stakes rarely get so high for a rough street brawler like Eddie Kingston, and this is his moment in the light to shine. It's one of the best matches in his career, and everything about it feels major and important because for once, it actually is important. It's not just marketing, it's not just a tagline. This is a once-in-a-lifetime moment, and it's that lightning in a bottle fans wait years and years to experience. 4 3/4 stars for this one.
When you go for revenge, you gotta dig 2 graves. One for yourself and one for the man you're going after. I dug many graves for myself, and guess what, man? At 33, I'm still here.
Eddie Kingston is someone who has been toiling out of the spotlight for a long time. There's a lot there to discover. I mentioned it towards the end, but it bears repeating that on top of these 5 matches, you should make it a priority to watch any and every Eddie Kingston promo you can get your hands on. Seriously, just go into them without context. Click one and you'll see why so many people have developed a real respect and emotional connection to his work. He embodies realness, and in a form of entertainment built on lies, that's a trait that cannot go unpraised. Thank you all so much for watching. I want to send a very special thank you, of course, to all my supporters on Ko-fi. Thank you to the one-time donators in Brian, Thurman at Buttery Heat, C. Franco, Luna Corva, David Byans, Sinan, Wilson Spence, and Monica Melchor, and a huge extra thank you to my monthly Ko-fi supporters, Captain Jake Hartless, Jake Dieterich, Eddie Roberts, James Draper, Chick Fritz, Matt Brummett, Jacob Dickens, Smarkdown Podcast, and Spiders in My Bed. If you guys want to support the show, head on over to ko-fi.com/Joseph Montecillo and you can get your name in the credits here as well. Guys, thank you so much for watching. You have been absolutely amazing. What are your favorite Eddie Kingston matches? Put them in the comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you, and have a good one.